as you said, like you are into the blockchain industry from the couple of years. So what is the message that you want to give to the upcoming blockchain developers or the entrepreneurs who wanted to start doing application development or start something in this the decentralized world, right?
So I've looked at, there are two aspects to development as I see it in the blockchain scenario. So I'm going to address the dApps, right? The application world, right?
Yep.
My advice to folks in application world is that they need to develop multi-dimensional apps.
Okay.
Right, and by what I mean by multi-dimensional, a lot of folks will have an idea, right? And in the blockchain, because it's immutable, right?
Yeah.
And the blockchain, they kind of start driving one way. But in the real business, a lot of times you have to
Go in the different way also.
go in a different
Yes.
direction. So when you're setting out to do a dApps, think about what iterations or what if you got to prepare for it, because you could spend a lot of time driving one direction to realize
Yeah.
it's a dead end. And then you really have to start from scratch. By the way, if you're in the developer space, nothing new. A lot of startups start writing something and then
Exactly.
they rewrite everything,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
the world has
That's a
not
big
changed,
problem.
it's just called differently
That's
now.
a big problem. Like I saw, like many of the companies who are investing into the blockchain, they start with the excitement that they want to execute, and at the end of the day, once they have some certain kind of a blockage, they definitely want to recreate entire ecosystem, which is really hurdle, and they lose their interest. They are not going to focus on what can be done as per the law and enforcement. As you said, this is really great advice. Like he said, you should always have a way to take out in the different route, right? It's a
Right.
multi-dimension way is really important, because the idea behind the blockchain is like not only the decentralization part, but it should be a very smooth experience with everybody. Like if there is some problematic situation, there is always a solution. You have to take that part. That's a
Right.
great advice.
So,
Yeah.
so the second part is when you are when you're setting out to do a blockchain implementation, or if you are out there thinking about entering a blockchain with something new, I think what I'm seeing is that maybe a year ago, or even slightly more than a year ago, before the ICO, questionable scenarios, everybody was concentrated on building community, building project support, and doing all this Bitcoin talk, and there's
A big
stuff,
ecosystem,
right?
yeah.
And the ecosystem is great, but I think if I were to be the person starting now, I would think of a substance of what you're building has more importance than a community around it. Because if you build something with a purpose and a substance, the community will grow around you, as opposed to if you have a great community and you fail to deliver on substance, you could see community turn on you,
Yeah.
right? And if you read enough blogs, you'll see how exciting everything starts until they miss the first airdrop, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you don't want to miss the first airdrop. Think of substance and then community before you go out and proceed.
What do you think about the Facebook's Libra's upcoming launch?
We probably will not fit in 10 minutes if we start talking about the
Yeah.
situation with Libra. But let me put my surrounding about it.
Yeah.
Libra is a reactionary move to a politically charged situation in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And I will explain that further by today, as we know it, everything pegs to a US dollar,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the US dollar being the predominant associated currency is regulated by US government.
Mm-hmm.
And when US government goes to big tech companies and start telling them they're too big, they
Yeah.
gotta separate, Facebook is too big or Google is too big, there are comments out there like that. The companies had to come back with an answer,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the answer is, well, if the government is in charge of controlling the money and they're saying we're too big, let's challenge them.
Challenge them. Yeah.
So that's a little different than just educating the blockchain community.
Mhm.
Essentially, potentially, makes for a change in the money printing business, right? Who's
Yeah.
going to be controlling
first one.
mint of the
Yeah.
dollar? So that's number one way to look at that. The second aspect of Libra is the development time. Since you're on the tech blog side, if you think who the players are, how you cannot assume that they're not building anything. They're just rebranding it.
Yeah.
Because Visa MasterCard is a blockchain with 24,000 transactions per second,
Exactly.
right? Plus minus a couple thousand.
Yeah.
So if we rebrand Visa MasterCard into Libra and we call it a private blockchain, how is it different? Because they have multiple nodes and different data centers,
Yeah.
right? And all of them are synchronized using a hyperledger-like mechanism, right? So
Yeah.
how is it different from blockchain?
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of blockchains that are not really blockchains,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
So it could be, and with the PayPal, with Visa, with MasterCard, right? They don't have development time. They
Yeah.
can go tomorrow if they want to.
Yeah.
So the only hurdle you're going to see is the push from the regulators
Mhm.
to try to delay the development release, right?
Yep.
That's what's going to happen. You have project managers or government trying to go inside and change the scope
Yeah.
to delay the release. That's in the
Exactly.
tech terms. This is what's
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
happen.
Exactly.
Right? They're going to try to change the use case.
Yeah. So it's you can say like it's a encapsulation for these kind of the big companies. They wanted to do as a blockchain kind of things. They want to
They
facilitate.
want to challenge the current system because
Yeah.
the current system is challenging them.
Yeah.
And the blockchain Libra just happens to be a tool, and it's not the real desire of those companies. That's my belief. I don't want anybody to go invest on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's what I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It will take a long time, I guess. Like once it is get launched, then we have to see the acceptance of users, like how people are going to react in the day-to-day trading smart and all.
I don't think there's going to be an acceptance issue at all because everybody uses PayPal and Visa and MasterCard.
Yes, yes.
And if the only thing we did is change the name from
Name the
MasterCard
phone.
to Libra, so they already have instant adoption.
The same content with a different folder name. That's
Exactly,
it.
right?
Yeah.
So think about the adoption. You're not going to stop listening to your music because you called your music folder something else, right?
Mhm,
So
yeah.
that is the adoption curve will only go higher, right, to the mainstream with them. And for all the other coins, they have to come up with something to stay afloat as that happens. Because if it's easy to use and I'm already using it and I don't have to learn about it, I might just use that.
Yeah. So what is the number one challenging things that you went through during the entire development cycle of your application?
If we're just talking the application,
Yeah.
it's industry specific. If you think Uber, right?
Yeah.
Uber has two applications, one for driver and one for you.
Yeah.
And the cars move in, 100-mile
Yeah.
radius of one city. And if the car has no fares, it can go home, right?
Oh yeah.
And
That's-
most of the complaints the Uber driver have that every time they get ordered, they go far away from their home.
yeah.
That's why everybody go working for Lyft, because in Lyft you say I'm going home, and they only give you orders that match you going home, right?
Yes.
Well, think about aircrafts. It's an entire world, right?
Yeah.
Expensive aircrafts that cost thousands of dollars an hour to fly, going to London, and how do you bring it back? Right, somebody has to pay for the
Yeah.
plane back, or going from California to New York. So the challenging part was to create a stable, predictable route models, right, that will
Really
allow
interesting.
you to move the aircrafts
This is a
that
really
are-
good move.
that are less riskier, so you don't have the aircraft stranded.
Yeah.
And if you consider that we're not the first guy to the party, right? The
Yeah.
trucking industry and the shipping container industry are all still trying to resolve this problem. To do it in 3 years on the scale of what TapJets is doing it today, it was really, really hard, but it was mostly around machine learning, route optimization, structurizing data, and all of the things that everybody talks about. Everybody talks about AI and machine learning,
Yeah.
but putting it in practice, it's
It's very hard.
hours and hours and hours of training the machines to do something very simple, which is to effectively just move the plane on the routes.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that was the biggest challenges.
That's great to hear. So, what are your takeaway from this next Block Asia event? Like, what new things are you actually getting into this? Like, a different kind of applications, developer community, or some legalization, like, or laws and regulation with respect to the different countries?
From the next block event here in Thailand, uh, I'm excited and a little bit scared to see the the rapid rise of exchanges.
Yeah,
Right? The
it's
exchanges
happening
are.
all over the world,
I know,
right?
but
Yeah,
when you go to the conference and overwhelming number of people in the conference
yeah,
are in the exchange business, right? You have to wonder with the securities, the STOs are not maybe ready out there for exchanges. Are we seeing potentially a high risk pool of exchanges being, that's like
coming
another
up.
ICO
Yeah,
wave coming? So that when you don't go to conferences, right, you hear about it, you read about it, and you always read the views, right, of a blogger or a
yeah,
news outlet like yours, which are all good information. But when you come in and you see for yourself and you go like, wow, this is happening. Like ICOs, remember going to ICOs parties, right?
yeah,
This is happening. You have to sit back and say, how do we in the community monetize it, benefit, and limit our risks
yes.
associated with this all of a sudden rise of IEOs? And I'm sure if you're in the industry, how many messages you receive on Telegram that I'm
Yeah.
Mary Jane and I want to help you with IEO on blablaexchange.io, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I probably have 200 messages in the last 30 days. And that means that there is a movement, but we need to learn from our past a little bit
Yeah.
to make sure it's not a false start. I agree with you, but if we're going to use this analogous, we keep having the chickens change the guarding the egg. They keep moving, right? And you don't
Yeah.
know which one is guarding the eggs.
Yes.
And at the same time, the folks with a lot of power, buying power in the industry, are trying to steal the eggs,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
so we have to be we have to pay a lot of attention into where the egg's at, what stage they're in, and if the right chicken is still warming them up, okay?
Yeah, that's great. It's great to hear from your side. You're really having a commanding application which is really solving the great problem of a traveling. He's having a great user base and the great community. That is itself is the example of how successful their app is. Right. If you really wanted to understand about the entire ecosystem, he is the best person to learn from it.
Having me here, and thanks for great questions.
Yeah.
Appreciate the straightness of the questions. And
Yes, it's important because what happened, like most of the time we go in, it's like the outer layer. We don't go in the deeper part. Most people just wanted to understand, you should know the inside out. You should know the operating system, how the kernel works, instead of just understanding how the application is going to type some message to some instant messenger. So this is a really good questions. Like you really have a in-depth knowledge of this entire things. We are happy to get more details from you. Thank you.
Thank you.